بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. So dear brothers and elders, this is the first time we're actually having this type of setting when it comes to our classes. And usually we have a lecture, everybody listens, and mashallah, it goes back as a very, we get happy and excited to do certain actions based off of the topic that we're talking about. But a lot of times we tend to not focus on something which is the most important thing. Right? And if you ask a person what's the most important day in your life, right, every person will give you a different answer. One person will say the most important day in my life is the day where I'm going to graduate from school. Another person will say when I get my first job, when I get my first car, when I get married, when I become a father, and so on and so forth. Depending on who you ask, if you ask Hafizah, will give you a different answer. When I get married, it's the happiest day. Right? If you ask some of the elders, it'll be the happiest day. That my happiest day was when I had a grandchild. Right? That's what they'll tell you. Right? So everybody's changes, but very few people will say that what's the most important day in your life. It'll be the day when you leave this world and when you're going to die. Whereas in reality, that is the most important day, because based off of that day and what you do on the last moments of your life, that's going to determine how your hereafter is going to be. Right? That's what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of his du'as was, Allahumma jal akhira kalamina la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah wa tawaffana wa anta radin anna ghayra ghadban. That Allah make the last words this kalima of la ilaha illallah, and make it such that I leave this world where you are happy with me. Right? And then it comes in another dua that make the best day of my life the last day that I'm going to be on the face of this earth. In terms of what I'm doing, make it that I wake up for Salatul Fajr and I come to the house of Allah. Make it such where I had made a lot of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make it such where I pleased you, where I fasted that day. Right? And don't make it a day where I disobeyed you, where when I went to bed, all I did was disobey you during the day, and then I went to sleep and that's it. Life came to an end. Don't make it like that. And we make dua Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. That's why each and every single action a person does, he is told to think about it. What if I was to pass away while doing this action? What will be my fate when I stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, كَمَا تُحْيَوْنَ تَمُوتُونَ كَمَا تَمُوتُونَ تُحْشَرُونَ. That the way you live your life, chances are that's how you're going to die. The stuff that you've been doing for the past 20 to 25 years, the chances you're continuing that habit, and that habit is going to continue to that last day of yours. But if you please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you've made it a practice where you're going to fast and you were going to come into the house of Allah, chances are you had come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the day that you were going to leave. And if for some reason you weren't able to, chances are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the reward of that. That you had a habit of doing it, you weren't able to do it, for whatever reason something came up, health issue came up, but Allah gave you the reward of that. Right? For example, if a person wakes up for Salatul Tahajjud, and he has a habit of doing that, but one day what happens is he's not able to wake up. Allah gives him the reward. He had intention, he was just, the alarm didn't go off, or sleep overpowered him, and he ended up oversleeping. He missed out Salatul Tahajjud. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His mercy, is still going to give that person the reward. So death is something which needs to be talked about more. And this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also mentioned, where he said, أَكْثِرُ ذِكْرَ هَازِمِ اللَّذَّاتِ. That amongst your conversations, have a topic and have the subject of death. And in reality, what did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam call it? He didn't say death, the exact word. He said amongst your conversations, have that thing which will destroy all of your pleasures. And what is that thing? That is death. Right? Whatever happiness that you feel like you're going to get, be it the next day, you're looking forward to a day, the moment death comes, I was just thinking about it last night, and sometimes it's pretty, the reality sets up on you, that you have all of these plans, right? Some people have young children. I plan to see my children go to school and then see them get married, get off, and have children themselves, and then I'm going to pass away, right? I have all of these plans. I'm just starting up a business. It's a startup right now. I have just gotten into the workforce. I got a new job, mashallah, it pays well. And you see all of these things that you're going to do with it. When I get my paycheck and I get enough money, I'll buy a house, put a down payment down, or I'll do different things. But then the reality is, you might not get a chance to even live those years. Right? The reality is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes your life, then all of those things are done. Right? Today in this world, you can say, you know what, give me 15 minutes, let me finish this thing. Give me half an hour. Can I extend the deadline another week? Right? And people will give it to you. Right? But the moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِكُّمُ الْمَوْتِ وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. That wherever you are, when Allah has decreed the day that you're going to leave, there is no turning back from that. Right? That's it. You're going to be taken, and the angel of death, he will not think twice. It's the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's going to take your life. No matter who you are, no matter wherever you are, wherever it's written, a person is going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, we always, obviously, we're sitting here alive, so we've experienced other people that have gone through death. Right? So be it a friend, be it a family member, be it a relative. And a lot of times, like we mentioned, there is certain rights of the deceased that they have over us that we need to carry out. Because obviously they can't do anything. They could, everybody would run away, because imagine a dead person walking around. Right? You won't ever see that happen. And if somebody feels like they'll see it happen, they'll be the first ones to run away, like, hey, what's going on? So there are certain responsibilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put on each and every single one of those that are around. And it's something which is considered and classified as a fard kifaya. Fard kifaya is something is obligatory as long as a group is doing it. Right? So for example, one person passes away and we're all over here. Now it's fard and it's necessary and it's obligatory for us to carry out the rights of that deceased. Now if 2 or 3 of you are busy and you need to go, but there's 4 of us that will take care of it, then all of us will be counted as those who have carried out the fard and the obligation. And now if everybody says, you know, we all have to go, no one does it, then all of us are going to be sinful on that. Right? So we have, for example, salah. Salah, every person has to do it on his own. It's not that a jama'at takes place in the masjid and everybody else is free of praying. No, that's not how it works. Right? Each and every single person has his fard on himself. But in certain obligations, if a certain group is doing it, right, then it falls off the rest also. Right? So those people that know and they're carrying out the janazah, or they're carrying out the burial process of the person, and they're looking out for the rights of that deceased, then every single person is, the obligation falls off of his shoulders also, as long as the group is doing it. Right? And there's a lot of reward that comes with carrying out the deceased, and the rights that the deceased have over a person. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely look down at the person who carries out the rights of this person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy on that person. And if you go out of your way for somebody, then the day you might need it, another person will go out of his way to come for you. So first and foremost is, now we're going to skip through the entire life of a person. We'll go to the moment where that person is on his deathbed. Right? Many times it happens where the doctor says he has a few hours left. Right, so now you start gathering the family. Sometimes it happens where the person is in the home, right, and you can see signs of the death that are coming on the person. For whatever, it might be because of health reasons that he's had for a long time, or it might be certain situations. Sometimes you can just tell that, you know, there is no more coming back from this, and then even the doctors say just leave him at home, let him pass away, and then we'll send the nurse, we'll send the doctor, whatever it is. And we'll have even relatives that have done that also. I mean, if you look at my mom's mother, my grandmother, when she passed away, she had gone through a long period of sickness, right? And the doctor said, you know what, it seems like any day it could happen, just keep her at home. When it happens, we'll send the doctor, they'll sign off on the papers, they'll go through whatever protocol they need to go through, and then they will go about their business. But now, when they are on that deathbed, right, what do we do? And what is told, and what are the teachings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And actually these are the most critical moments. Because whatever that person is going to utter, whatever that person is going to say, and in fact if you look at shaitan and the devil, he's going to exert all of his efforts and he's going to exhaust every single knowledge that he has in terms of deviating a person. And every single energy that he has, he's going to give into taking that person away from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, you'll find many incidents where it comes that a person was a Muslim, might not be a super practicing Muslim, but he was a Muslim his entire life, and he classified himself as a Muslim, but on his deathbed, shaitan comes in different forms. So that's the most critical test. Sometimes he comes in the form of a person's parents. Now if you're shaky on your religion, and you believe it, but you don't really believe it, or you believe it, but you haven't really practiced it, so now imagine that. He'll come in the form of different, obviously we don't know exactly because we haven't gone through those situations, right? But it comes, and you can find through narrations that shaitan will come in these different forms, and he'll try to sway that person away. And he'll say, you know what, give up the religion that you've been following. He'll come in deceased relatives that, you know what, whatever you're doing is wrong. Right? Take it from me. Now, if that person isn't firm rooted and he's not strong on his religion and his beliefs, then that person will say, you know what, at this moment, let me turn my trajectory. Maybe I'll make it out of the fire of Jahannam, thinking that he's going to go into paradise if he leaves the religion. Right? So these are the most critical moments. And that's why it was told to us from our religion and from our deen and from the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you should gather the family around, and what should you talk about? What should you do around those types of people? You should recite the kalima of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. You should make the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You should recite the Quran so that that person is listening to it. I remember when my grandfather passed away, it was in Kaiser in South City. So, not to boast, but for about more than 24 hours we had somebody around that was reciting the kalima of La ilaha illallah. So obviously his heart was beating, but the doctor said, you know, it could be any moment. So we made shifts throughout the entire family, and this is how we want to go. And this is how we want to leave behind children who are going to do that for us, right? Who are going to remind us of this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, who should I associate myself with? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave that person an answer, and he said, that person, alladhina idha ru'u dhukirallah, that you associate yourself with those types of people. When you look at them, it reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where they're going to be there for you. Right? And these are actually the true friends of yours. Yeah, one is the person who's going to be there physically. You have a problem, financial problem, you need to borrow some money, that person will be there. And yes, it's rewarding, and that person is there. But more so than that, you need a person who's going to keep you on your religion. When that person sees you slacking off, say, hey, you know, we need to go to the house of Allah. I haven't seen you for Jummah. I haven't seen you in the month of Ramadan. Where have you been? You know, we have this program that's coming up. Why don't you come to the house of Allah? Right? Those are the types of people we need to associate ourselves with, and those are the types of people we need to become also. Because it's a two-way street. And when we see another person, we bring him on, and when we are also deviating or we're going off the path, no person is perfect, right? We need to have people that are also going to bring us to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're going to remind us. That's why this reminder is very beneficial for a believer. Right? Because you have all these distractions of this world, where you have this work life, we have this family, right? And everything that happens, right? But we need to also make our time to come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that when it comes to these moments, we are going to be successful, and the angels are going to come and take our soul in a way where it's going to be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will be easy. So that's why when a person is passing away, his soul goes in two ways. One is a good way, and one is a bad way. The ulama mentioned through the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that if that person was a true believer and he had pleased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's going to go into paradise, his soul will come out of his body in a condition where that person, his soul is going to want to leave this world, right? And his soul is going to want to go out. Because why? The soul is going to be ready and happy to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is going to be excited to go back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for that person. Because when a person wants to go somewhere, you don't even have to push him. A child, you want to take him to the candy store, you want to take him to Chuck E. Cheese, you don't even have to get him ready, he himself will get ready. But now you send him to school, doesn't want to go. You send him somewhere else, man, I kind of don't want to go. So now you have to force the child. You're trying to take him to the house of Allah, you have to force him. Just like that, the soul is shown what is going to be kept for him and what he has put forth. And when that person has done that, the soul wants to go to paradise. The soul wants to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It sees what has been prepared for that person. When that happens, then that person happily goes, and his soul also comes out, and it's very easy for the angels to take out the soul. As opposed to the person where he knows his abode is the fire of Jahannam. When that happens, the soul doesn't want to come out, because who wants to go towards the fire of Jahannam? Then the ulama mentioned that his soul comes out in such a condition where it's as if it's a prisoner that has run out of prison, and the guards are trying to bring that person back. How is that person going to come back? Sometimes you need to call backup. Right? You got to call the SWAT team, right? When they try to get these types of people back, because you don't know how that person is going to react, what that person has. So just like that, the soul doesn't want to go because the fire of Jahannam has been prepared for him. Right? And so the angels will pull out the soul in such a condition, and it's so painful for that person. It's as if you take a thorny stick and you take it through cotton, and you see how hard is it for that person to take it out. Right? So we want to make it such where our soul goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happily. And if you think about it really, a person when he goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in reality the life of the hereafter is something which is the best. For a believer, no stress, you don't have to worry about financial responsibilities, you don't have to worry about putting food on the table. Anything and everything a person wants is going to be given to that person, and the moment he even thinks about it. He wants certain types of food, Allah will make it such where it will be right in front of that person. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him that, oh my slave, you did what I wanted you to do on the face of this earth, so now I'm going to do what you want me to do for the rest of your life. So the 60 to 70 years of life that we have, it's something which is very important, it's very critical to make our abode in the hereafter paradise. So who's the muhtadar, right? So the muhtadar is something which there's explanation behind. So it's mentioned that a person whom the signs of death are on, and like how we mentioned, the person who is passing away, the doctors have said he only has few moments left, where you've seen the person's eyes are closing, right? You see the pulse starting to get low, or whatever doctor's signs they give you, right? You just look at the machine, right? Those signs are also, the vitals are getting low, and you see the person, he's going through the signs of death. So that person is the muhtadar, who you can see on his face. He's still alive, but he's going through the process. He's about to transition from this world to the hereafter, and the angels are going to come. Right? So at that moment, it's sunnah. Right? Sunnah is something which is not it's not an obligation, but it's sunnah that you make the person lie on his right side. So for example, the qibla is here. If his head is here, right, and his legs are facing this way, he's going to lie on the right side, and his right side is going to be the qibla. Right? Just how it's normal for us and sunnah for us to sleep. When we go to sleep, it's sunnah for a person to put his hand underneath his cheek, and he lies on the right side facing the qibla, right? And he puts his hand over his left leg, and he goes to sleep like that. So similar condition, how we go to sleep, that's how a person should be made to rest if he is able to. Right? It's not that you got to force the person also. Sometimes you move the person, he goes through a lot of pain. Right? So you can also leave him the way he is. Or sometimes you can move the bed. Right? So try to position the bed in that way. So it's sunnah that you make a person lie on his right side. You raise his head a little bit, and then you start reciting the kalima of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, so that the person is at least hearing it. If he's not able to do lip service of it, or he's not able to say it himself, then at least he's listening to the kalima of La ilaha illallah. Like I mentioned, that's the most critical moment. So if that person is reminded, it's very important that you keep reciting the kalima, you keep reciting Surah Yasin. Surah Yasin is also mentioned, that you recite Surah Yasin amongst the deceased that are around you. Right? So now the person goes through that process, right? Now the doctor says, okay, it's done, it's over, you see the machine, the lines are all flat now, and the life is taken away of that person. So now what do you do? It's very important. Certain things are very important and critical right at the beginning. You'll see that a person's mouth, if we haven't gone through or seen the deceased, you'll see the person's mouth sometimes stays open. Right? So it's important that at that moment what you do is you take a piece of cloth, you tie it around his head, and you close the mouth from underneath the chin. Right? So you tie it a little bit tight where the mouth closes. Right? You don't leave the mouth open. Because those moments right there is the moment he passes away, you have a few minutes, otherwise his body is going to become stiff. Right? So when you are able to close the mouth and you're able to tie it, then that tying of the mouth, even when you open it up later on, the mouth will also stay closed. And the other thing we should do is we should bring the feet closer together. Right? Some like to tie the two feet together so that the body becomes straight. It also makes it easier when a person is washing the deceased. Right? So imagine having the mouth open while you're watering the deceased down and giving them a shower. You also don't want water going in. Right? And then you're able to take that person, and then you go through the entire process. Now in America we have a lengthy process that takes place. So it's very important that we try to do this as quick as possible. The person passes away in the morning, we should make it such where we're starting the preparations for that person, and we get him buried as soon as possible. Sometimes people have wishes, and the muftis, they mention that even if in their will it's written that I want to go back to Pakistan, or I want to go back to Fiji, or I want to go back to my country and get buried, you overlook that because it's not part of our deen. Right? And it's very important that you make that person, you get that person buried wherever he is as soon as he can. Right? Sometimes you might need to travel based off of, sometimes there's a tragic incident that happens, a person crashes, may Allah protect, and he's somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You can drive him a couple of hours where you have a community, or you can drive him to the next city, right? Or somewhere close by where the family members are. Right? That's fine. But when it comes to 2, 3, 4, 5 days, When it comes to transporting the body, wasting that much money of getting the body to another country, for what reason? No one knows why. Just because it makes that person happy that, I want to go back to my home country. It's not part of our religion. Right? So those that are making the decisions around, they also need to be well versed with this. Otherwise, what they'll do is they'll give in to those, and if they don't have it, then you'll see the fights that start happening. That the person that has religious understanding, he'll say, no, we need to bury him now, we need to do it as quick as possible. But those other people will say, you know what? No, he wanted to go to Pakistan, it's my relative, it's my brother, and that's his last wish, and I'm going to make sure that happens. Right? So then all of these emotions are high also at that point. But what we need to do is come back to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and at that point, that takes over. Right? That takes precedence over anything and everything. Right? So we make it such where we start the preparations. There's a lot of preparation that goes by in terms of the signature of the doctor and all of these things that you need to do before you're able to take the body to the mortuary, or before you're even able to take the body to the place where you're going to bury it, because they're going to need all of this paperwork. And a lot of times, even if one letter is off of the name, they won't do it. You're going to have to go back and have to redo the paperwork. And sometimes what happens is it takes extra 5, 6, 7 hours, and you have to come back the next day. Right? So although emotions are high, but the family members really need to be strong at that point, because it's the right of our brother, of our sister who had passed away, father, mother, whoever it is, that we try to do it as soon as possible. Right? We try to get them buried and go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're not going to bring them back from death now. You're not going to bring them back again, back to this world. And just as a side point, actually, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this incident mentioned in Hayat al-Sahaba, where there was a lady, her son passed away. Right? It's a true incident, an authentic incident. Now, he had passed away in the early days of her bringing Islam. And her relatives told her that, the moment you leave our religion, whatever religion they used to follow, and you go and become a Muslim, you better watch out. Bad things might happen to you. Right? So now her child had passed away. Now she was strong in her belief and her connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she walks up to the body. Don't try this at home because it won't work. So she walks up to the body and she makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the ulama, they mentioned that at a time where even the Prophet ﷺ and great Sahaba were standing around her. Right? So she looked up to the heavens, she made dua, and she said, Allahumma inni aslamtu laka taw'a, wa khala'tu al-awthana zuhda, wa hajartu ilayka raghba, fala tushmit bi 'abadat al-awthan, wa la tuhammilni min hadhihi al-musiba ma la taqata li bihamliha. She made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Long story short, the moment she finishes her dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings her child back to life. Like I said, don't try this at home because it won't work. We're not on that level. So try and prepare the body and get it ready to go and get buried. And those are the main important things that you need to do as soon as the person passes away. So we're gonna tie the mouth, close the mouth shut, make sure the eyes are closed, and also with that we're going to make sure that the legs are also brought closer together, and then you start the process of that. So before we start reciting the kalima of La ilaha illallah, we start reciting Yasin because of the most critical moments. And then you go on to bathing the deceased, right? So now how do we wash the deceased? This is something also which is very important. And like I said, many people will give you calls and say, you know what, we have a person who passed away, we need somebody to wash. Right? So now how do we do this process? Now this process is something which is very important, and we need to go through it, but we're not going to go into complete details because ideally you would need to actually go through the process in order for you to completely understand it. Right? And those of us that have done it recently or even years back, it's not easy. So you need somebody that's well versed with it, and the only way you're actually going to understand is if you're actually doing it. It's not as simple as you turn on the shower, you get under the water, and that's it. You start, and everything else goes perfectly fine. That's not how it works, right? So now you go and you come and you bring the body into the place where you're going to wash it. Sometimes some of the masajid, they have places where you're going to wash the body. Sometimes you have to go through an actual facility. Right? And you have to go wash the body. So you try to get all of the people already ready that you're going to use for that moment. So sometimes you need a person that's an imam that might come and help you out. Sometimes you need a person like Amir Sabr Hashim that have done it many times, and they'll come and help you out. Right? So you already have these people ready, so that when you are going through these things, because time is going to be of the essence, right? So you want to do things very fast, but you also want to do them correctly, and you also want to do them the way they should be done. Right? Otherwise, a lot of people will make mistakes, and they'll come with different things. And at the time of death is when you'll find everybody becoming a mufti. Right? So you find a person saying, oh, but I've seen it back home go like this, and you need to do it like this, and you got to put flowers on this, and you have to do the burial like this. Right? One person should be appointed, and that person should make the decisions. And ideally, it should be the imam, right? Or somebody that you know and you have trust on, that person knows and is well versed with the rulings of the burial and how a person should go about it. So they have about a list on what you should exactly do. So first and foremost, they say, obtain a doctor's certificate, obtain a burial order, obtain a death certificate, right? And then so on and so forth, many other things that you should go about. And it differs from county to county also, right? So each and every single place has a different method of going about it. Sometimes there is different requirements that go about it, and those things you would have to ask somebody that actually completely knows that, right? The imam will probably just know about washing, unless they've done also that process, right? So that's something which is very important. So first and foremost, we should, this is another thing which is very important. Sometimes what happens is a person comes out of the hospital and he has certain wounds on his body depending on how he passed away, or sometimes even the IV, the way it was put, right? So if you look and you try to take off all the bandages sometimes, right? The moment you take off the bandage, the blood starts coming out and it just doesn't stop. So many people will say, you know what do I do at this point? Right? So at that point, you kind of look at it and you ask the doctor first, that if we take off the bandage, would it be okay? And even when you are taking it off, take it off slowly. If the blood starts coming out and you feel like if you take out the bandage completely, you're not going to be able to stop the blood, leave the bandage on. Right? Again, a lot of people will come and say, no, you have to remove the bandage. But you're going to cause more problems. It's going to be more harm than good. And so it's very important that we take things, we are considerate a lot of things, and we take each and every single step when we're actually thinking about it, because like I mentioned, emotions will be high at that point. All right, so then you go through the process of washing the deceased. You try to cover up the nose, you put a little bit of cotton inside the mouth. Right? You start off with making wudu of the deceased, right? Just how we make wudu, you wash the person's hand, then you take a wet cotton, you put it in and around the mouth. The person's not going to be able to gargle, but you just wet it a little bit. And then you put some wet cotton inside the nose. Then you wash the deceased's face. Then you go back and go do the arms up to the elbows, just how we do wudu. You do masa of the head, you wash the feet. And then you tilt the body to the right side, and then you start washing from the top down. Right? So you take, sometimes you have a handheld washer, where you're washing the deceased. The water shouldn't be too cold and it shouldn't be too hot either. Just how we like to shower, should be a little bit warm. The ulama mentioned that if you are using a bucket, sometimes you use a bucket because not every place has those handheld showers, and you put some perfume inside of the bucket and then you start washing like that. So you tilt the body to the right, you wash the body from top to bottom, and then you tilt it to the left again, you wash from top to bottom. You make sure the private parts are clean. And then you go about that process. Sometimes if you have soap, you're able to use soap. Soap is also fine just to clean up the body. And then you dry up the body once that's done, and then you take the kafan. Kafan we've already gone through the process with the ladies, and they already have their own, so we're not going to go through that process. But for the men, it's 3 pieces of cloth. Right? So one is the bottom piece, like how we wear the lungi nowadays, if those know about the lungi, where it's something which is not stitched, right? And it's there to cover the satar of the person. So the bottom part of the person. So it comes and it gets wrapped around the person's legs and his private parts up to his, pretty much up to his navel. So that's one part of it, which is also called the izar. And then the second part is the qamis. Right? Just like how we wear a shirt or how we wear a jubba. Right? It has a slit in the middle where your head can go through. Right, and you put it over the person. It's like a shirt, but it's unstitched, right? So you won't find sleeves into that also. So the first is the legs, you cover that with the izar. The second is that you cover the top, which is the qamis. And then over that is considered the entire piece of cloth, which is considered a lifafa, where you cover the entire body. Right? So it goes from top to bottom. This one is not cut. It has an extended length of it, and it covers everything. Right? And then you tie it from the top, the bottom, and the middle. You try to take a little piece of cloth that's there, and it comes with the packets. We have a lot of the packets that are here in the back. Everything is cut to size most of the time. The only thing we need to do with the packets that we have is you need to make where the head goes through, you just make the slit a little bit bigger, than what it is, because they haven't cut it completely, because based off of the person, sometimes the person's head is a little bit bigger than the other person, so on and so forth. And then you cover the person, you tie the body, and then you get it ready for Salatul Janazah. And even that, we should try to do it as soon as possible. And a lot of times what happens is a misconception where we feel like we need to bring the body into the masjid, and we need to pray Salah in the masjid. The best is, if you're able to, you do it at the place where you're going to bury the person. And in fact, you'll see even within the Bay Area, we have a lot of Muslim cemeteries. Right? They have places where you're going to make Salatul Janazah, and then from there you're going to go and bury that person. Right? And something which we should avoid bringing into the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the body, to read Salatul Janazah in there. In fact, a lot of the ulama, they mention that there is even no reward for a person when he brings the body into the house of Allah for no reason. Right? Sometimes you have no choice, then it's fine. Right? But for no reason you're going to bring it into the house of Allah and in the limits of the house of Allah, and you're going to pray janazah in here, it's better that you don't read it at that point. Right? So we should try to read it outside. Even in Qoma, when we have it, we try to do it. We try to do it where there's a road. Sometimes you can shut down the road and you could read Salatul Janazah outside over there. Right? So main thing is we should push for that. Right? And again, the family members will try to bring it into the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we're doing it outside. Right? So it's something which is very important that we do that. And sometimes, like I said, if you have no choice, then you could bring it into the masjid and you could read, but that's the last resort. Right? You want to be doing it, even outside here would be fine, where you do it outside where the parking place is. But the main thing is, do not bring it into the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're reading the Salatul Janazah. You can put it in the back while you're reading Dhuhr, sometimes that's fine. But the Janazah itself should be read outside of the masjid, it should not be read inside of the masjid. I remember growing up, people felt like it was like extra reward for reading it in the masjid. Not only that, but like in the first saf. So they would put it in the first saf and then everybody would read. And even growing up, when you don't know, you feel like, alright, I've seen so many people do it like this, so let me do it also like that. But then you come to realize that in reality we should not be doing it like that. In fact, that's completely wrong. Right? So it's very important that we take it outside. The best is we have these facilities. And again, if you have one central point where the imam is leading the thing, whatever he says goes. Sometimes what happens, whatever he says, that doesn't go, but whatever the relatives want to happen, and then he also feels like, you know what, I don't want to force myself too much because it's the person's brother, it's the person's father, it's the person's mother. Right? But in reality, we want to be following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because not only that will that be beneficial for us, but it will be beneficial also for the person that passed away. Right? So we want to look out for that person's benefit, and we want to do it based off of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the teachings of those who understood the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. Right? So then you get the person ready for the janazah prayer. So again, similar situation when you are going to put the body down for janazah prayer. Ideally, you'd like to have it on a raised platform, and the same exact way where you're going to put the head, and then head to where his right side would be the qibla. Right? So if a person is facing this way, the qibla is here, his head is here, his legs are this way, and the imam will stand on the torso or on the chest of the deceased. And then you go through the process of that. Right? Salatul Janazah, we usually go through it every single time we read the Janazah, because we don't do it every single day, so we tend to forget. Right? So it has 4 takbirs the imam will read. First he'll do Allahu Akbar. There's 2 methods of it. After the first takbir, one person can recite either thana with a slight variation, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik wa tabarak ismuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa jalla thana'uka wa la ilaha ghayruk. Right? That's one option. Right? For some other brothers, you can read Surah Fatiha. Right? That also is fine. And then the second takbir the imam makes. After that we read durood, just how we read durood on when we are in the position of at-tahiyyat. And in our last rak'ah, when we're reading Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, that entire durood we read. And the third is the sunnah dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's something which we should all memorize, because many of us don't know it. Right? It's not hard and fast where we have to read only that dua, but it's something which we should try to make it a point where we memorize this dua. And that dua is Allahumma kfir li hayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghirina wa kabirina wa dhakarina wa untana. Allahumma man ahyaytahu minna fa ahyihi ala al-islam wa man tawaffaytahu minna fa tawaffahu ala al-iman. Right? So this dua, it's pretty short, relatively short, and something which we should try to memorize. And it's in these books a lot of times. If not, you can come sometimes after Maghrib, spend a few days, inshallah, we try to memorize these duas. Just so when it's time to actually do it, we're able to carry it out completely the way we want to. Right? And it's actually a moment of us being proud. And the other thing we should do is we should really learn how to lead the janazah. Because yes, the imam is there, but you want to lead your own father's janazah. You want to lead your own brother's janazah. You want to lead your own mother's janazah. Because the imam will lead it, but he's not going to have the same feeling that you're going to have as a brother, as a father, as a son. Right? He's not going to have that same feeling because, yeah, he was an imam, you might have known him, but it's not a relative to him. He doesn't have that blood relation. As opposed to when you're going to say Allahu Akbar, when you're going to be reading the du'as, that feeling that you're going to read the du'as is going to come completely out of the heart. Right? So we want to learn all of these methods so that when it's time for our relatives to go, we're able to. And sometimes even the announcement is made that anybody has any other relative that wants to lead the janazah, the imam is happily ready to step to the side and that person can lead the janazah. A lot of times people get scared because they don't know how to do it. But we should try to learn it so that when a person has a relative that passes away, he's able to carry it out completely. Okay. So then we go through the janazah process. Another thing which is very important, which I forgot, is we should try to walk with the body about 40 steps. Right? So 40 steps, carrying it on your shoulders. And a lot of people, sometimes they'll try to become bodybuilders and they'll do this bench presses with the body. You don't want to have it over your head. Every single person, you line up people, 6 people here, maybe 6 people here, depending on how big the box is. And you keep it on your shoulder length, and you walk with the body 40 steps. And you give every person a chance. Right? The very close relatives can stay to the front, but every other person can rotate. So he can put his shoulder on it, and then he can move forward and give another person a chance, and then he can maybe catch it up a little bit further ahead. Right? If you're not able to, then it's also fine, but it's something which is of importance, and it's a source of happiness for us, that I'm ready to send my beloved brother, my beloved relative, my friend, whoever it is, back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I want to be the one that carries out the rights of this person. Right, so now we come up to the grave. Again, a lot of things that happen around the grave, everybody decides to have an opinion around the grave. That I want to read this, we want to do this, we want to put this holy water, and people want to do weird things. And again, the imam can only do so much because people are so adamant. I remember a couple of years ago, we did a few things. A lot of it was done without actually them asking the imam, but the imam was there. A few days later, now this rumors start going around that this imam, he approved of this and that. So then it came back to him and he's like, you know what, I had no say in it. They just started doing whatever they wanted to. It's not that I told them to do it. So it's very important, like I said at the beginning, we keep one person in charge and whatever he says goes. And you need to be very firm on that. And that ideally has to be a very close relative to the deceased who is also going to say, hey, everybody, we're going to listen to whatever the imam says. And even the imam, we need to select a correct one also. Because we don't want somebody that also does all of these different bid'at and different innovations that take place. And it happens a lot, especially in different cultures, because of different things we've seen back home or whatever it is. And they feel like, you know what, this is a relative of mine and I want to do all of these things. Because of lack of knowledge, they don't really know. And they start doing X, Y, and Z. And now it turns into something else, turns into a party, it turns into whatever it is.
Malana, quick question. So for the janazah prayer, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody knows all the du'as.
Yeah.
So is Surah Fatiha just fine as you're standing behind the imam?
Yeah, so you can read it. That final dua that I mentioned, which is a little lengthy one, it's the best to read, but if you don't know it, you're able to read Allahumma kfir lahu, Allahumma rahamhu. Anybody can even recite that or memorize that on the spot, right? Which just means, oh Allah, forgive him, oh Allah, have mercy on him. So that will suffice for a person.
Okay.
So even if he doesn't know all of those other ones, and that's actually a very good question, because a lot of times you'll see in the janazah, a lot of people come, distant relatives who've never been to the masjid, for whatever reason, or they haven't really gotten an understanding of the religion too much, they haven't gone through the classes or whatever it is, but they want to read the janazah. Right? So now you're not going to be able to teach them the entire process and what to say, what not to say in those 5 minutes. So it's a very good thing where you can read those very short du'as, and those will suffice. So Allahumma kfir lahu or Allahumma arhamhu. That can, and we'll also do the job inshallah. But ideally, we want to memorize them so that we're able to do it. So then, again, like I mentioned, we have the imam set, and that person is ready to carry out, and he does whatever he wants. And then you bring the person up to the grave. Ideally, same exact process, right? So from when a person is about to pass away, you make him lie on his right side, sleeping, he lies on his right side. When you're doing the janazah, his right side is on the qibla, is facing the qibla. Just like that, when a person is placed down into his grave, right? That person, when he's put down into his grave, ideally the grave should be dug in such a way where it has a cushion on the left side so that he can put his back and his body goes towards the right side. So for example, if the grave is dug out like this, you have a little bit of a lip that goes to the left, and it's made in such a way where he's able to rest on this side and he's able to face the Qibla. But now obviously in America there's different laws that they have, and we have to stick by whatever they've dug out. So what we do is we improvise. So what we do is once you put the body down, you take extra a piece of dirt, or you take extra whatever you can, just so you can tilt the body a little bit. Right? And again, the same process would be where you would tilt the body up against the wall. Sometimes we even do that. So they have those cement blocks that are there. We tilt it up against the wall and we make the body face the Qibla. Sometimes the way the positioning of the grave is, you're not able to do it. So you try your best. It doesn't have to be completely on spot, but you try your best to tilt the body towards there. And then you go through the process of closing out the grave. So this is also which is very important. Each and every single person should put 3 handfuls of dirt into the body. And each and every single handful, there are certain things to read. So first is minha khalaqnakum, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, from it we have created you. Meaning dirt, each and every single one of us have been created from dirt. So minha khalaqnakum, and that's one handful you throw in. وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ, right, that translates to, and in it we will return. So Allah has created us from dirt and we're going back into dirt. وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ, and then you put in a second handful. وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. The third one you do is you read وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that from it a person will again come alive out of that same exact dirt. Because when a person goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he goes into dirt, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides that person, he comes out again, and the day of judgment is established, every single person will come out of his grave, is coming out of that dirt, and that is going to be the day of judgment where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call all of us to stand in front of him. So these are all reminders also for us. Another thing which is very important, at the graveyard you find, oh man, it's my long lost friend, I haven't seen him for 10, 15 years. So now you start having conversations. Oh, how's business going? Oh, you have that shop over there, right? Oh, you're making this much money? All of these conversations start taking place. Sometimes even before the closing of the grave, right? And this is a moment for us to reflect on the day where we are going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then what am I doing with my life? Today I read on my brother, tomorrow is going to be me. How much salah have I read? How much zakah have I given? How much have I fasted? How much of the assistance of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have I made? But these are all moments of reflections for us. But what happens is, a person will start having different conversations, he'll start doing X, Y, and Z, he'll go about his life as if there is no effect to that. Right? So these moments are supposed to be of effect to each and every single one of us, not just the relatives. Right? So it's supposed to be moments of reflections, because no doubt a person is also going to be in that same situation. In this world, you can bring an opinion, and every single person will have 10 to 20 different opinions about that. Whatever it is, you bring up a topic and I'll say one thing, the Sayyid will say one thing, Hafizah will say something, the Yusuf will say something. Right? We'll all have difference of opinions, whatever it is. But the moment you bring up death, every single person will say, you're right. One day is going to come where you're going to die. Although they're trying to make a person immortal and have him live on forever, the reality is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that death is going to come to you no matter what happens. Al-maut laysa minhu al-fawt. The ulama would mention that death, there is no escaping it. No matter how healthy you are, no matter how much good food you eat, how much you look after your health, one day is going to come, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take you back. So these are the moments of reflection that you go about. So now once the grave is closed, right, the Imam will come and he'll read a few things. Right? Ideally Surah Fatiha and Surah Baqarah by the head up to Muflihun. And then he'll read the end of the Surah Baqarah towards the legs, and then inshallah we'll make dua. A lot of times there's a difference of opinion on this, on whether to lift the hands or not when you are making dua. So ideally you should face the Qibla and lift your hands and make dua. If you're not able to, and if you're standing around, because then what happens is people walking by, if they don't know, they feel like you're worshipping the grave. And even that also has an impact on how you're going to be doing your ibadah. Right? So sometimes if you're facing the Qibla, for example, if the grave is here, and you're facing the Qibla, and assuming the Qibla is this way, right? Then it's fine for you to lift your hands because you're looking towards the Qibla. But now, if everybody is right around the Qibla, right around the grave, and everybody has their hands lifted, it's better to avoid. Not that it's completely impermissible, but it's better to avoid lifting your hands when you are directly facing the grave because it looks like worshipping the grave. And then you go about that process. Ideally, is mentioned in the hadith that the relatives should stay around 20 to 25 minutes after the burial and recite the shahada, because at that moment the person is going to be answering the questions, right? Which we all talk about all the time, and we know the answers to right now, but we won't be able to give those answers as easy as we are able to do it right now. But when a person he's listening to the shahada, it makes it easy for him. And the exact duration is mentioned in the hadith where Rasulullah ﷺ mentioned that the time it takes for a person to slaughter an animal, skin the animal, and then distribute its meat. Now, no person is saying a few hours, but ulama say 20 to 25 minutes. You sit around, you whisper the shahada, not you start yelling the shahada. You whisper the shahada, and then it makes it easy for the deceased. And then after that, you can gather with the relatives, and you can make dua. But dua is something which is a lifelong thing. We shouldn't pinpoint a certain day that we're going to make dua. We shouldn't pinpoint that, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. You gather the relatives, you can have some food if you want, right? Because it's something which we're all going to need one another at that point, because it's a relative that had passed away, right? You bring some food at the house, but you shouldn't also start celebrating different things. Now it's like a celebration, so now we're going to do X, Y, and Z, right? Dua is there for lifelong. The Quran is to be read lifelong, right? That we're going to read dua for our deceased all the time, right? Every day I'm going to wake up, I'm going to make it part of my ma'mulat, that every single day I'm going to read this much amount of Quran for my father that had passed away, for my son that had passed away, for my nephew that had passed away, for my sister, for my brother, whatever it is. And this is something which is very important. Right? We leave behind children and we leave behind relatives who are going to pray for us, because that's going to benefit us. If a person, when he passes away, is not able to carry anything out of himself. Right? You're not able to do fasting, you're not able to do zakah, you're not able to make the dhikr of Allah, you're not able to go out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you left behind people and you taught them the deen, you were a means of them going and learning the religion, being a hafiz of the Quran, or you left behind children, they are going to make dua for you. And you taught them that, and as long as they're going to be doing that while they're alive, or if they're going to teach it to somebody else, you're going to get the reward of all of that. Right? So we make it such that we live a life where we leave behind these people who are going to make dua for us. And dua is something which is very powerful. Right? It comes in the narrations that if there was anything to change the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would have been dua. And that's how powerful it is. And we take it very lightly. When we have a problem, connect yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ulama, they mention that if you really want a solution to your problem and you're not waking up for salat al-tahajjud and asking from Allah, then in reality you don't want a solution to that problem. Right? So the solution to each and every single situation that we come into our life is our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, ad-du'a'u mukhul ibadah, wa fi riwayah, ad-du'a'u silahul ibadah. That the weapon of the believer is that he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because for that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the control of everything, and He can make the impossible possible for that person. How many a times do people come and say, the doctors had given my father only 6 months. It's been 6 years. Through dua, he's living a perfectly happy life, healthy life. The doctor said he has such a rare disease that there is no coming out of it, there is no cure. It's been 10 years, he's living such a happy, healthy life. Right? It's all through the power of dua. It's in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He wants, He can give shifa, and if He wants, the most healthiest person, He can bring him down in the matter of seconds. But this dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at is something which we should spend more time. So that's why even within a day, we should make it such where we have 10 to 15 minutes where all we're doing is we're disconnected from everything else, and we lift our hands and we ask Allah for whatever needs we have. And it comes in narrations that the last third of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out to His slaves and He says, is there anybody that has any need? I can answer the need of that person. Most of us, what are we doing? Many people are snoring, they're sleeping. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out every single night. What need do you have? Do you want a job you're looking for? Right? Are you looking for your children to come back on the line? Are you looking for your health to come back? Are you looking for a spouse that doesn't listen to you? Are you looking for a spouse that you want? I keep looking at house up. This is right in that. Whatever need a person has, right? That person, it's not just connected only to a person's religion. Whatever dunyawi needs or whatever worldly needs that person has, he can also ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to that person. We may dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it such where the last day of our life is the best day. where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us in that condition, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with us. Allah takes us in the condition with the last words on our lips, that is kalima of la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, wa min dua inshallah, and then inshallah we'll get ready for food. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam, tabarak ya zal jalali wal ikram. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم أحي الدين كله في العالم كله إلى يوم القيامة واجعلنا سببا في ذلك. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم إنا نسألك فعل الخيرات وترك المنكرات وحب المساكين، وأن تغفر لنا وترحمنا، وإذا أردت فتنة في قوم فتوفنا غير مفتونين. اللهم إنا نسألك فجاءة الخير ونعوذ بك من فجاءة الشر. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد ما ذكره الذاكرون الأبرار، وصل عليه ما تعاقب الليل والنهار، صل عليه وآله الأطهار وصحابته الأشجار المهاجرين منهم والأنصار وتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان ما تعاقب الليل والنهار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.